in our new close reader, Wind and Water Change Earth. So I need you to find this book so that you're ready to follow along. Our essential question is, how do we react to changes in nature? And we're also going to be looking at how nature responds to changes in nature, right? How the different landforms are formed, how the wind and water can shape things into new things. We'll be looking at all of that during our science time as well as during our ELA time during this unit. So our first text today is called Volcano, and it's got an exclamation point here in the title, which is a little different than what we normally see. And I'm already thinking, well, why do you think that there is an exclamation point in the title? And then I'm also wondering what's happening here. It looks like maybe this has erupted. I think this is the magma flowing down, but it looks like it's kind of on fire down here at the bottom. There's smoke coming out. So I'm wanting to know more about what's happening in our picture, and I'm hoping our text will answer some of that. I want you to think about some questions you have about volcanoes. What are you hoping to learn from this text? When we activate our prior knowledge about volcanoes and start thinking of questions, it's going to help us to understand the text in a deeper way. So here is Volcano.
Shared reads 1 and 2. Remember to annotate as you read.
Volcano. Under Earth's crust is a layer of large, rocky plates called the mantle. These plates shift and move around. Sometimes plates push against each other with so much force that one plate slides on top of the other. This causes the mantle to melt and push up, melting even more rock. The heat and pressure build until a vent or crack opens in the crust. This causes an eruption. An erupting volcano spews hot gas, rocks, and ash. Molten rock or lava flows down the volcano, changing the landscape forever.
Okay, so this tells us about a couple of things. One, how a volcano is formed, and then what happens when the volcano erupts. So let's go ahead and get a writing utensil ready. And we're going to look at some important things here, some key details. One is that it told us about the mantle, right? And the mantle are those large plates that shift and move around. And that's important because when they the plates push together with so much force that one slides on top of the other, then that's what's going to cause the mantle to melt. Okay? And when that happens, the heat and pressure build until a vent or crack opens in the crust, and that's what causes the eruption. So imagine those plates pushing together, one slides on top of the other, and then that causes the mantle to melt, and it pushes up even more rock. The heat and pressure build until a vent or crack opens up, and there's where our eruption happens. So it says an erupting volcano spews hot gas, rocks, and ash. Molten rock or lava flows down the volcano, changing the landscape forever. That's pretty crazy, isn't it? So it's not just, I think we often think of volcanoes just spitting out lava. That's kind of the word that we associate with a volcano, but it actually spews hot gas, rocks, and ash. And then those things kind of combined create this molten rock which flows down the volcano, and it changes the landscape forever. So this area will never look quite the same as it did, right? Because it's been changed by the eruption of the volcano. All right, let's look at our next text, which is called I Am Wind, and you can see just by glancing at the shape of the text that this is a poem. And I'm wondering what kind of poem this is going to be, because we've read quite a few poems by now in our close readers, and some of them are happy, some of them are sad, some are silly, some have really beautiful language. So I'm wondering what kind of poem this is going to be. It is called I Am Wind. So let's listen to find out what kind of poem this is.
I Am Wind by Constance, Andrea, Caremis. I am restless, never still. I know no bounds, go where I will. Free to fly, I set my course. I am wind, a mighty force. Hear me whisper, hear me moan, as I carve out shapes from stone. Round and round the rocks I go, never stopping, blow, blow, blow. Centuries is what I take for all the sculptures that I make. But at last I leave my mark for you to see at Zion Park. Towers made of rock and sand, all mine, no touch of human hand. Just an old wind passing through, but see the wondrous things I do.
So this poem is actually an informational poem, right? It's teaching us about how the wind can shape the rocks by blowing sand into them. So that kind of helps change the look of them. It helps smooth them down or take off edges. And so let's go through this a little bit slowly together. It is an end rhyme. So we've got words that rhyme here at the end. I am restless, never still. Go ahead and circle. I know no bounds, go where I will. So still and will. Free to fly, I set my course. I am wind, a mighty force. Hear me whisper, hear me moan, as I carve out shapes of stone. Round and round the rocks I go, never stopping, blow, blow, blow. Centuries is what I take for all the sculptures that I make. But at last I leave my mark for you to see at Zion Park. Towers made of rock and sand, all mine, no touch of human hand. Just an old wind passing through, but see the wondrous things I do. Now I do want to point out that some of these do have the same exact endings. For example, this one has ILL, ILL, right? So those rhyming words end in the same vowels and consonants, just that onset, the ST and the W change, but the rhyme is the same. Now, not all of them are like that, though, right? Take and make is another example like that. Mark and park, sand and hand. But then we have course and force. Similar, but this has O-U-R-S-E. This has O-R-C-E. Same thing with moan and stone. So we've got two different versions of the long O here. We have a vowel team, O-A, and then we've got our bossy E that makes the O say O, but both of them have that long O sound with the N consonant at the end. And so we can still hear the rhyme that they make even though they don't end quite the same. Same thing with go and blow. Both long O sounds spelled differently. And with through and do, right? This one, O-U-G-H, makes the same sound as just this one little O, right? They've got this is an open syllable, and so it's a long O, and this one has quite a few letters to make the O sound as well. So those are our end rhymes. I want to talk about something that's kind of an interesting thing that the author has chosen to do. I want you to notice that they use the word I a bunch. Let me grab my highlighter real quick. So we've got I am restless, never still. I know no bounds, go where I will. Free to fly, I set my course. I am wind, a mighty force. So even though she's saying I, she's not talking about herself. And we know that because we have that phrase down here, I am wind, which is also our title, right? And so this is called, I'm not sure if you've seen this before, we've not talked about it yet, but this is called personification. And personification is when the speaker says I, and it's something that is given human qualities, but is not actually a human. So in this case, it's wind. The wind has been personified, so we've made it into a person talking about what it does, right? And giving it the human quality of talking and explaining how it shapes the rocks at Zion Park. And so we obviously know that wind can't talk, right? It does sometimes make noises, but it's not going to talk. But in this case, it is personified as a person so that it can talk about what the wind has done. So kind of a different take on that. We see tons of eyes, but like I said, we know that wind doesn't actually talk or say those things. So I'm going to have you answer a few questions about these texts, and then you may upload them to schoolwork.